I'd like to call this regular scheduled board meeting, Oscoda Township, to order for August 12th. If we could begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can I get a roll call, please?
Mr. Cummings?
Here.
Ms. McGuire?
Here.
Mr. Spencer?
Here.
Mr. Taser?
Here.
Mr. Sutton here. Mr. Wushtabarth?
Present.
Mr. Palmer?
Here. Next is the agenda. Does anyone have any additions? I have one. It would be number 10 on other, which to discuss the executive search.
I have one. I want to add to the list engagement letter to extend the auditor's contract by 1 year.
Is that contract up this year?
It's up, yeah. So I want to extend it so they can do 24's audit. Since we're already through August.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. Anything else? I need a motion to approve the agenda with the additions.
I'll make a motion that we approve the agenda with the additions.
Support.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes?
Mr. Wushtabarth?
Yes.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Palmer?
Yes, we have an agenda. Next, we have our 2023 audit presentation. We have a representative, if you want to take it away.
Yes, all right, so can you all hear me?
Just bring the microphone closer to you.
There you go.
All right, any better now? Okay, cool. So for everyone on the board, they should have a packet of the audit, and so I'll be referencing that a fair amount, but for everyone who isn't a part of the board, I'll explain everything, but there's also a packet online if you ever wanted to look at it. So if you go to page 1 of the audit report, it's a few pages in, but it is page number 1 of the report. This is the independent auditor's report, and it states what our opinion is on the financial statements. So if you go to the first 2 paragraphs at the top, they're under the opinion section. I won't read it all to you, but essentially what it says is you received an unmodified or a clean opinion for the audit. There's nothing that anybody could have done anything better to receive a better opinion, and you received the best opinion you could get. And so that's what was submitted to the state. So yeah, kudos to everyone involved with that. Beyond that, that's the most important part of an audit. So you passed that pretty well. If you go a few more pages down to page 5, this is the management discussion and analysis of the audit report. And I'll go through the financial highlights just so you can see at a really high level where you stand financially. So the first bullet point, the assets deferred outflows exceeded the township's liabilities and deferred inflows by about 40 million at the end of the year, a little bit over that. Of that 40 million, about 13.4 is unrestricted, meaning it can be used for anything that the township needs. The difference between the 40 million and the 13.4 is largely built up of your capital assets or certain funds that have to be used for certain activities. Like if you had a street fund, you'd have to use it for streets or something like that. But the large portion of it is built up in your capital assets, as it's not super easy to spend an asset without taking a fair bit of time to sell it. Second bullet point, the township's total net position increased by a little under 4 million. So you had excess revenues over expenses of about 4 million. You had about 12 million in revenues and 8 million in expenses. Accordingly, you added to your net position. The third bullet point, of the township's funds, if you combine all of the funds or governmental funds for the township, you had about 8 million or 7.5 in fund balance or net position. They're kind of interchangeable. There's some differences, but they're very similar. Your net position in the governmental funds specifically decreased about 950,000 in comparison with the prior year. So you spent more than what you received, which isn't necessarily bad. It could mean that you received more in prior years and therefore you spent more this year. Of that 7.5 million of fund balance, about 3.7 is available for spending, meaning it's unassigned. There's nothing it needs to be used on. It's not restricted in any way, so it can be used for anything. And that's largely built up of your general fund. The fourth bullet point, your unassigned fund balance, which again is 3.7 million, equates to about 79% or about 80% of your general fund's annual expenditures. And so what that means is if you receive no income for the next year, next fiscal year, you'd survive about 80% of it. So it's a sizable fund balance where you're not going to start having cash issues, but it's not too large to where you're just sitting on a bunch of money and it's not being used. And it's a good liquidity measure of how well the township would survive if it received no income. You got on a few more pages to page 8. This is your statement of net position. It's a little hard to read because we're shoving a lot of stuff onto it, but it essentially is what we just went over. It shows all of your assets in each category, your liabilities in each category, and the changes year over year. The major changes is part of it is your cash. It increased about 195,000. There's a plethora of reasons why it increased, but the point is it is. Your statement of cash flows could show more info if you cared. And your capital assets increased. If you take your capital assets not being depreciated and the ones that are being depreciated, it increased about 4.2 million. And that's just because you had a pretty large construction project for your water main extension during the year. Next page, on page 9, it's your statement of revenues and expenses. And it shows the changes year over year for all of your various revenues and expenses. The main one, I think, is your operating grants, your capital grants and contribution decreased about 1.1 million, and that's because there was less, you received some state and federal grants in 2022 that you no longer received in 23, just due to the nature of the grant. There's some other changes, but as far as I'm aware, that's the main one. There isn't a whole lot more I thought we should go over, but page 15 all the way through page 27 are your basic financial statements, and it shows in a lot more detail what we just went over. It shows all of your funds specifically and all the assets, liabilities, revenues, expenses that the funds specifically had. So if you're wondering how your street fund was doing or your LDFA, Local Development Finance Authority, was doing, you could see how that's working out. But those are your basic financial statements, and it shows in a tad bit more detail where you stand financially in each of your funds. Your single audit, for anyone who isn't aware what a single audit is, if you receive federal funding over $750,000 and you spend more than that, you have to have a specific federal audit done. They had that done this year with no issues. Another unmodified or clean opinion is what they would say. So that's later in the report, but it's essentially the independent auditor's report, but over your federal grant. So. Were there any questions over any of it or anything else? I try to keep it as short as possible to not bore everyone.
It's nice to know we can stay in business even if we don't collect any money this year. Which
yeah, 80% of it.
Anybody have any questions? thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that was easy.
Do you mind if I head out, or is there something else you want to talk about with the engagement letter or anything like that?
I didn't have any questions about it. It's a standard engagement letter that we get every year, correct?
Yeah, standard. The only caveat was we desired you worked with Plant on it, but that's,
Right. With
I'll
Lance.
let you discuss that. so.
Yeah, okay. And the price would be the same, correct?
Yep, it's the
Yep,
same as last
For
year.
the next year, okay.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So next up would be our first public comment. Normally, we ask you to fill out a card. I didn't bring any cards. We don't have anybody here to hand them out. So if somebody has a comment they'd like to make on the agenda, an agenda item, please come up to the podium, state your name and comment, please.
Hi everybody, I'm Blair Sealover from F&V Operations. I'm the group manager and principal of the company. I would just like to thank you all for all the work we've given us over the years. I'm not too close to that thing. And just say how much we appreciate the last decade or so. When we first came here, we were a pretty young company and we've grown quite a bit.
Excuse me, Bill, can we ask him to move the microphone up so we can hear him?
Yeah,
It's
we're
pointing
trying
down
to-
to his...
Took the microphone.
There you go.
How's that? Is that better?
Yes,
Thank you. Sorry. I'll start over. Thanks. I'm Blair Sealover with F&V Operations. I'm the group manager, principal in the company, for both the operations company and the engineering company. And I just wanted to thank you guys for all the work we've gotten over the years. We've been here over a decade. We've provided a pretty good savings, I think. You know, we've stretched to provide value and at a reasonable cost. We appreciate the expansion of scope that was presented in the RFP and to accommodate the upcoming expansions of your system. Your foresight's very appreciated. In the past, you know, I know there's some concerns with, it mentioned in the memo there were some concerns over performance. I know I've made staff changes, I've made changes throughout the years. In our last annual meeting, I wasn't aware that there were any issues with our performance, so just wanted to get that out in the open. And then my biggest concern, or our biggest concern, is you're ultimately looking at bringing in a new firm that doesn't know where all the bodies are buried. Your system is very complex. You have a lot of issues here, and it'd be silly to sit here and you know you have issues. Between the construction that was done in the Air Force Base and the routine construction and the expansion that's going on, and the ultimate effect that would have on any user rates. So if you have any questions or concerns, I'll be here all night. Happy to answer any questions. I am the ultimate, buck stops with me with F&B, so thank you. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Anyone else? It's not working. Did you
Maybe turn it
get
off.
turned off?
It's gotta be working.
That work?
Yes.
Okay, Brian Haley, Oscoda. Eventually you're going to be hiring a superintendent. The biggest problem I've had over the years since Bob Stalker resigned, I have not had one township official that I could talk to concerning the DNR trust fund in any serious way. I do respect Mr. Freeman. I know he writes the grants, but I'm not going to be bothering the engineer with basic questions. And so I would hope that the person you have in the board packet looks like great credentials. In fact, I saw where he does have, he had a line item of Parks and Recreation. But I really want a DNR type person that understands not to write for the grants. Mr. Freeman is right for that. But for us at the board level, Oscoda people, the officials, they understand and respect the DNR trust fund. And obviously I'm talking about for Toffee. So I'll just let it go at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Comment? Okay, seeing none. Moving on to the consent agenda. We have the regular meeting minutes from July 22nd, special meeting minutes from July 10th, and the work session minutes from August 5th. And then we have prepaid bills from August 13th in the amount of $14,734.36. Check run of July 30th, 2024 of $140,962.10. July 31st of 24, $1,900. And the check run August 6th of $93,044.20. And then in the packet is the DWSRF report, the CWSRF report, the C2R2 report, the EPA community grant report, and the fire insurance money. Anyone have any questions on any of those things or comments? Hearing none, if I can get a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda as submitted.
Support, Sutton.
All right. Oh, yeah, roll call, please, sorry.
Mr. Worcester?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes?
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed. Just trying to catch up here from that audit report and get up to date here. So the first item is Resolution 2024-23. This is a resolution rescinding the duties of the superintendent, which then places those by statute onto the supervisor. Do I have a motion?
I'd make a motion to approve Resolution 2024-23, rescinding the duties of the superintendent as presented.
Support.
Discussion. Anybody have any questions about this? It's actually a formality. The state law in the Charter Township Act gives these duties to the supervisor. The township has always chosen to hire a superintendent, and then by resolution we pass all those duties on to the superintendent that typically would, by law, would be on the supervisor. Without a superintendent, then they simply fall back to the supervisor. So, any other questions, any comments?
We actually didn't have a superintendent until base closure.
Yeah, 93.
Yeah.
I didn't hear what you said, I'm sorry.
It said we didn't start having a superintendent until base closure time.
Oh, right,
Yeah.
yeah. Thank
There
you.
was only a supervisor before that.
Right.
So for 31 years, we've had
Yeah.
a superintendent here. Roll call, please.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
Mr. Worcester?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes?
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed. Next is Resolution 2024-24. This is the truth in taxation. We have to do this every year. This maintains our millage rate at the same rate. It's been the same rate for approximately 15 or 16 years. Under the Hidley Amendment, if we don't pass this resolution, then they would reduce our millage rate, and it would reduce every year. So every year we pass this truth in taxation. We will have a public hearing on this at the next meeting. This resolution is to approve having that public hearing on August 26th. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve Resolution 2024-24.
Support, Sutton.
Any questions, comments? As I mentioned, we do this every year. Roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Teaser?
Yes.
Mr. Wurstabar?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes?
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Pullman?
Yes, motion passed. Next item on the agenda is the Oscoda Library green space proposed phases. I think I saw our librarian here somewhere.
She's right there.
She would be so good to give us a brief rundown of what's involved here.
Oh, I didn't mean to take that off. Just popped out. Hi, board.
Hello. Good evening.
Per usual, I have really exciting things to share with you all. Robin Savage with the Parks Library, Public Library here in Oscoda. And tonight I bring with me Paige and Andrew from Hope Shores Alliance. You will have already noticed in the board packet that I sent over some really exciting plans for creating a green space in a little bit of my backyard over at the library. So I got my plat map and I worked everything out, and it looks as though we are going to be producing a peaceful garden area in the backyard, approximately 35 by 60 feet approximately. That's a loose estimation. So real quickly, I don't want to be wasteful of anyone's time tonight, but the process took place a couple of months ago when I had included my plan for 2025 capital improvement for the library to create a small garden space out back. We have a little bit of garden space out front where I currently have a few annuals and perennials, but I thought it would be great to have a few raised garden beds, like vegetable beds, and a bench, and maybe a little fountain or something small out there. And then we have an existing relationship with Hope Shores, the library that is. And lo and behold, about 4 weeks later, Paige reached out to me and said, golly, we are looking for a green space to incorporate a garden with some peaceful features for the community to utilize, including survivors of what their cause is, right? So survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, things of that nature. So I thought, what better timing than to work together and bring this to the library. So Hope Shores has written for a grant to cover the majority of the costs. I know that's going to be a question in the back of some people's minds. So we have been talking for 2 or 3 weeks, maybe even 4 weeks, rolling out plans. So you'll see in the board packet, I've included initial, like phase 1, how that's going to unravel, what that will look like. And again, Hope Shores has been kind enough to invite us to use our space for the funds that they have already secured. So at this point, if you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them. If you want to hear from Hope Shores, they came prepared with answers. So let's talk.
Well, it sounds like a nice project. I didn't see in your proposal where you're asking for any money.
No, nothing more than what I had written for in my capital improvement plan for 2025, which would not exceed $500.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Rob?
After you build it, how is it going to be maintained?
So we have a group of not only Hope Shores volunteers, but board, as I'm sure you are aware, I sit on 5 committees and I have 2 executive seats on 2 different boards locally. And so I've gathered the troops, so to speak, to have a group of volunteers who will come in and provide watering, weeding, things of that nature, along with Hope Shores. I don't mean to leave them out of this conversation because they are a huge part of all of this, including securing volunteers.
The goal behind building preventative spaces in our communities is to give them back to the communities so that communities really feel ownership of the space and create connections, safety, and supportive systems. And that's really how it ties back to Hope Shores' mission in supporting survivors. It's saying we're here as a community to lift one another up and not allow the harm to keep happening. So this is really going to be led by our communities and our volunteers. So we're so excited to be partnering with the library in this.
Very good. Okay. Well, I read through your proposal. It sounds like a great idea. As long as you have it mapped out to where the property lines are, so we're not over somebody's property line.
Right, absolutely.
But at least you're not building on anything, so.
Nope.
I mean, you can always move your garden over if you need to.
Right.
It sounded like a nice program. So,
Yeah, we're excited. So stay tuned as all of the phases sort of unravel in the next few years.
So will you be beginning this like in the spring or still this year?
Fall this year. Fall
Okay.
this year, you'll see
Okay.
small but noticeable changes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very
yeah.
good. Very
So,
good.
and Andrew is sort of the mastermind behind the design, so let's not leave him out of the conversation.
Yes.
Yeah, we've got a community space that is going to mainly feature just seating for this year, with the addition of beautification, with the hope to roll out the agricultural side of it, which is the community garden, and get the agricultural minds of our community involved.
Okay.
So it's going to be like that community garden in Taos, only with seats out there so anybody can visit and walk around, and if you see a
Yes.
ripe tomato, it's yours, huh?
We don't predict any of the problems that they've had over there with their space.
That garden over there is awesome. Every time I go there, there's just all kinds of stuff growing, but it's always locked. And if you don't pay to be part of it, then you're out.
Right.
So it'd be
right,
nice
yeah.
to see that in Oscoda where anybody can go, and yeah.
Robin, with partnering with Hope Shores, has the attorney been contacted? Do you know, have you worked with Tammy on that?
I know that I have not worked with Tammy on that. She's aware. I've had conversations with her, just not necessarily the attorney, but I will heed your.
Okay, just that's all.
Yep.
Okay.
Got it.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sounds good.
Very good.
Does anybody disagree that we have the best librarian in the whole county? Not any shortage on Gulf Shore Alliance, but
Right.
our librarian
They're
is
amazing.
phenomenal. I don't know, do we need a motion on this?
It's in the capital improvement plan, so.
I would just make a motion to approve the green space proposal as presented.
All right, support, Cummings.
Pending attorney.
Pending
Pending attorney review. Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, makes sense. Yep.
And insurance. Insurance should cover that, shouldn't it?
Yeah.
All right. Any questions, comments? Roll call, please.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes?
Mr. Wurstbar?
Yes.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed. Good luck, Robin, with that. Thank you. Next is see in the packet, the tentative interim superintendent. I'm sorry to say, I contacted this gentleman a couple of weeks ago. He was referred to us by our recruiter. Came up with this gentleman. When I saw his credentials, I thought, gee, I wish he was applying for the superintendent position. But he is retired. He does consulting work. The first time I talked to him, he seemed interested, but he needed to talk to his wife because I indicated he wanted to know how many hours it would be, and I said it would be nearly a full-time job. The superintendent is a full-time job. At $130 an hour, that would be somewhere in the neighborhood of about a $270,000 salary, which we are not in a position to pay. Our salary range for what we're advertising for is between $120 and $140. And I indicated to him that we probably, I said I can't speak for the entire board, of course, but we probably could, based on his credentials, could probably go to the higher end of that salary range. And he said, well, let me think about it. And so I contacted him last Thursday to see if he was still interested. We put it in the packet on Friday. He said he had to talk to his wife again and go over it. And unfortunately, he called me late Friday and said that he was not willing to take that big a cut in pay. And his words to me were that since he's local here, so he reads the papers and he follows social media. And so he was not interested in taking this interim position, especially at a reduced pay situation. So we have no action on that tonight.
I want to speak to that too.
Okay.
And I understand that it would be on the high end of his wage scale, but he's not going to be here for the entire year. And he is a professional, so that he's here for the interim only. And that's his job, is to come in and be the interim and help the board, the old board, going out to get, data to, meet with the old board, to talk to them, work with them on their way out, to try to get things still rolling to the end of the year. He has the experience. He's done it for Ann Arbor. He's worked for Woodhill Group. It would be a smoother transition if we did have him. Is it going to cost money? Yeah, it is. But it's not any more than any other professional service that we have at $150 an hour if we give him the entire what he's asking for at $150. He's not going to be here, and probably if he's that skilled and has those, he doesn't need to be here 40 hours a week. I mean, maybe once he gets in here and takes a look at things, he's going to be helpful, be able to help the new board, help some of the people that are staying, help in the entire transition. And I think it's important that we have somebody like that to guide us through.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, I agree.
At $150 an hour,
Yep.
that is...
Well,
Does
that's,
it matter based on his comment about social media and
Did he already just
I
simply
mean, all you can do is
decline?
ask him, offer him the 150,
I can-
and if he doesn't want to do it, then he doesn't want to do it.
I can go back and make him that offer. I told him in the beginning, I couldn't speak for the board. I could
Yeah.
only say that my thought was we probably would be able to offer the same range that we're offering for a permanent position. But if the board's willing to pay, the $150 an hour, I'll get in touch with him and see if that changes his position. And we can I'll bring it back to the next board meeting.
I would like to see you offer him it.
I have a question regarding the basic term. I understand $150 an hour is a lot of money, or 130 was it? Wasn't it? It was 130 you mentioned? Bill, not 150, right?
I'm sorry, what?
It was 130 you mentioned, not 150, I thought, but maybe on the
It's
survey.
between 130 and 150.
Got it. So, yeah, I mean, it's certainly a good deal of money, but I think what I would want to see, if we're going to go down that road, we'd want to put in limitations such as, like maybe it's a 40 or 45-hour a week maximum, that we don't get something like an 80-hour a week bill at 150 hours, something along those lines. But again, this isn't because I think there's anything nefarious, but just, I think it just protects us and puts our due diligence in with the agreement. But I think the guy's experience looks phenomenal. I think it'd be well worth having a continued conversation with him to see if he's interested.
I think we could all learn from it.
Would the board want to give me some guidelines on how many hours a week you would want to engage?
I'd say not to exceed 40.
We spoke 40, yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, at that point.
I make a motion to postpone the interim superintendent until the next meeting on August 26th in order that our supervisor can have a discussion with this gentleman and come back to the board.
Support. Well, I will re-engage with him, and do you want to make the offer $150 an hour?
I think just have a conversation, Bill, and then come back to us.
And he originally told me he'd be available 3 to 4 days a week. I think probably the 3 days a week would fit his schedule better. Maybe our budget better.
I'd be open to that.
Yeah, me as well. I was thinking that, being that this is interim, that we should just be hoping he could rely on department heads and try to just keep the core functions going as opposed to the entire job. Might be a way to support that lower number of days per week that I think I overheard you saying. It's a little hard to hear you, but did you say 3 days a week or something?
When I originally talked to him, he said he would be available 3, maybe 4 days a week.
I see. Yeah, well then, we just focus on core functions. It's only for 3-4 months.
Okay. I will re-engage with him and bring something back for the next...
Well, we need a roll call.
Oh, yeah, roll call, please. We did postpone, right? Yes.
Yep.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Wishbarth?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes?
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed. Next is the Detective Sergeant resignation. Is there a motion?
I would move to accept the letter of resignation from Officer McNichol. Sergeant McNichol, I'm sorry.
Detective Sergeant.
Detective Sergeant McNichol.
Support Cummings.
Comments, questions?
This particular resignation letter, as do all of them actually, really disheartened me. I feel like this gentleman's been with us for 27 years. I feel, I don't work in the police department, but I feel a loss. He's been with us for a long time.
Well, I would just like to say that we accept his resignation with regrets and appreciation for his years of service. Any other comments?
Eric and I were hired around the same time at the township, and it definitely is going to be a loss. I'm sorry that his letter, that he feels like that his skills have gone underutilized. That makes me really sad.
Yeah.
But he will be missed, and I wish him the best.
Any other comments, questions? Roll call, please.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Wishbarth?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed. Next is the proposal from Plant Moran for as needed accounting services. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve with changes to
Support.
her document that she has.
We have a motion by Ms. Squire, support by Mr. Sutton. Questions, comments?
I'll start since I made the motion. Under scope of services, it talks about we'll provide temporary financial assistance at your discretion. Our work product will be from preparing, reviewing schedules, analysis under the direction and supervision of Tammy Klein. Ms. Klein is no longer with the township, and I feel like it should say with the department heads that are responsible for those duties statutorily as who they should be talking to, not to the superintendent. Because that's a fine line, and I know we ran into that before of another company having access to our general ledger and making changes without permission. So I don't want to see that happen again, but I can see where this would be beneficial, and I know that Ian had mentioned it. We actually were able to get one of our dings off of our audits. I'm not sure if the board's all aware of that, but we actually had 5 findings and we got it down to 2 after working with the auditors. Josh and Tammy and I sat down around the table and had a conference call with them, and we were able to get that down. They suggested Plant Moran, and we agreed to work with them. What they'll basically do is what the CPAs were trying to do is wrap everything up at year end so that it all goes a lot smoother. I don't know if anybody noticed, but we are now just having our audit presentation, and it's August. That should have been done in February, March timeframe. So we're already 8 months behind the ball. So knowing where we're at in the year. So this will help, and a lot of it had to do with, we had a lot of money coming through here last year, going with different projects and different things like that. Some of the continued issues that we've been having, but I think Plant Moran overall will be a huge benefit as long as we don't cross any lines.
I have a question. You mentioned earlier about the financial positions as well as the superintendent. To be specific, you're referring to the clerk and the treasurer, correct?
Correct.
Okay, good.
How long is this for? I don't see in here where it's the length of this contract.
It's,
I think it's on
Yeah, I
the
think it's
second
at will,
page.
and as needed.
It's as needed.
So you just call them whenever you need them?
Right, and say, hey.
So are we going to pay them like a retainer type of thing situation? or-
No, it's an
No.
hourly rate.
They charge you
It's just an hourly rate.
It's just those rates.
Right now, their low end is for consultants, about
Yeah.
where we are now.
Accounting consultant is 155, senior accountant consultant is 175, manager partner.
And what, like Jamie said, these other ones on there you're looking at would be specific to like things for the federal reporting, new things like that, where you look at that, the other stuff would be under that lower rate for assistance. And then I just want to make sure for supporting, I put in with changes to talking to department heads in relation to accounting needed in that department. So that way they can reach out to you, me, if there was somebody, Al at the park, for instance, if he needed them to get in there and help him with something on his end.
There's nothing he should be doing in
Is there
general
nothing in
ledger.
there he would need?
No.
Or just relation to
It'd be
those?
you or me as our statutory duties apply.
Perfect.
That would be the person they would have to contact.
Well, I would like to see the superintendent, whoever it might be kept in the loop at least.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
I would think this interim superintendent, if he were to change his mind, would definitely want to be able to talk to Plant Moran. I'm sure he's dealt with them before.
Oh, yeah, I'd be thrilled just to talk to him, actually, from his skills.
Any other comments, questions? Roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Worcester?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed. Next is the Police Department rifle purchase request. You see in your packet 2 proposals.
I think we need a motion first, right?
Oh, for discussion? I would make a motion to approve the police department rifle purchase request in the amount of $36,223 to be paid from 101-000-720-439 in the amount of $14,083.77 and $22,139.23 to be paid from 101-000-528-000.
Support?
What account is that?
The first one is the remaining marijuana funds, and the second one is the remaining ARPA funds.
And just to let the board know, this came up during our capital plan and budget discussion with the police and fire department. And it was mentioned that we have officers using their personal firearms. It creates a personal liability issue, and it's a major liability issue in my mind. And I'd ask that this be brought forward because that is something that I will not agree to. I didn't know that until it came up in that meeting.
Yeah.
What do they use a rifle for?
Repeat
Turn it
that.
over to Greg.
Okay, so patrol rifles are used in more serious situations. If we ever had something like an active shooter in a school or something like that, a patrol rifle is definitely going to be our weapon of choice for that due to the range that we could be working with. We also encounter lots of people up here with deer rifles and stuff like that. Thankfully, it's been a long time since our department's been involved in any type of a critical incident where shots were fired, but it has happened in our history and it could happen again. So we like to be prepared. They've become a standard issue piece of equipment in law enforcement across the country.
think this is one of those pieces of equipment that you hope you never have to use.
Correct.
I think so.
But if you do, you want to be prepared properly. So, any other questions? Any questions?
There were 2 quotes on here. What's the difference?
The difference is suppressors versus no suppressors. The advantage of suppressors is that in a shooting scenario, an AR-15 style rifle produces about 165 decibels of noise. So that instantly is going to make the officer that is there, as well as any other officers, temporarily basically deaf. And at that point, they're not going to be able to communicate with their partner, not going to be able to talk to central dispatch, let other officers know what's happening. I mean, it's just really the big advantage is a communication thing. Also, if you're talking about a low light situation, nighttime, it definitely reduces the amount of muzzle flash you get, so you don't lose your night vision.
Are there any other grants out there that would help pay for this?
Not that I've found as of right now, no. I'm not saying there's not, I just haven't found any grants for firearms that the criteria fits into.
And we don't have any rifles at this time in the police department?
We have, I believe, 3 that have been kind of piecemealed together over the years. They're not all even the same parts anymore. Like an AR is built of an upper and a lower. So they're different manufacturers. And then we have 2 military reuse guns that are Vietnam era. Primarily every officer is carrying their own personal one right now. I don't believe any of the department ones are in use due to the condition that they're in.
Was this amount budgeted, or is this outside the budget?
This was something that came up, we had it budgeted in our CIP for next year. And as Mr. Woosworth indicated, after the budget meeting, he asked that I get numbers and bring it forward. That's why it's here today.
So would that mean we'd have to make an allocation to pay for this one, since it's not in this year's budget?
I'm sorry, what?
Since it's not in this year's budget, it's in next year's, would we have to allocate, would we have to do an allocation and move some money to pay for this?
They're going to use the rest of the ARPA money and marijuana money.
Yeah, we have money left
There's
over.
money
They would
left
have to-
over.
ARPA.
That's why we're specifically saying.
Not from next year.
It's not just coming out of.
Oh,
But then is that all of the money then, Josh? That's completely everything for ARPA that has to be
No,
used by
that
2025?
No, that finishes up the marijuana, and we still have some additional ARPA funds left, right about 180,000.
I'd like us to use the rest of the ARPA money for new equipment at the beach downtown, personally, because we haven't gotten a grant, but my opinion.
Well,
Look at what we have down there and see what we can put together.
we have to allocate the ARPA money by the end of this year.
Yes.
Right.
We don't have to spend it, but we have to allocate it
Yep.
before the end of this fiscal year. So, any other questions?
No.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Spencer?
yes.
Mr. Teaser?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Wurschenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed. Next is pay request number 8 from Schaff and Associates, part of the C2R2 water main funding, in the amount of $126,040.85. And as you can see there, leaves a balance at 207,126.88. So they are winding down this project. Do I have a motion?
I would make a motion to approve the expenditure of $126,040.85 for Schaff and Associates Construction. And what account would that be paid out of?
C2R2.
To be paid from the C2R2 funds,
When available.
when available.
Thank you.
Support. We have a motion by Mr. Spencer, support by Mr. Wusterbarth. Any questions, comments? This is, again, part of our water main extensions program. Like I said, they are coming along with that. Roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Wurschenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Teaser?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed. Next is the Lake Huron Pledge.
All right, and this one I wanted to get in there to get it in front of you guys. This is something through Huron Pines and working with them on getting the property on Hall Island. I had talked with Jamie a little bit about this, but to give you guys time, they would like to know, one, if we're interested in doing this. It's a collaboration around Lake Huron, not only on our side, but on the Canadian side as well. Every year they have a meeting. The end of this month, they have a meeting down in Bay City between all of those groups around Lake Huron. And it's basically looking at your rivers, streams, any pollution issues. So for us, like having PFAS in the community, there's extra support. You're basically looking to keep Lake Huron the way it is, pristine, beautiful, clean, make sure we're avoiding all of that. And I wanted you guys to read through because it also ties us into currently what we're doing with our parks and recs, a lot of the green space, making sure we have all of those areas available, keeping the natural areas. Like one of the grants we're working on right now, Local Coastal Authority for the beach park is another one. All of this is coastal preservation, flooding, anything to do with the shoreline. But the pledge would be a pledge putting Oscoda in with the rest of the communities, pledging that we would keep that green area, continue to do our best to keep everything clean in the environment, and basically diligently working on our PFAS and other issues in the community. So I just wanted to get this in front of the board so you guys could review it. Huron Pines, if the board is thinking they would like to do that, would like to then take it over from there. They do big promotion and bring in the other partners when we do it, and they would be looking at September to launch that.
I asked Josh earlier though, but our attorney has not reviewed this document yet. And I've got some questions about under the Lake Huron Forever Pledge. It says we'll allocate resources, time, money, and people. I'm not really sure we can do that, so that would be a question for her.
Right.
Okay.
And that's why I wanted to get in front of you
Yeah.
guys. Any questions, any if we wanted to go to the attorney before we do anything that way. The board has action on it.
Is there a motion to approve this pending attorney approval?
I'll postpone until the attorney reviews and reports back.
Support. So we'll postpone this?
Yep.
Good. That next meeting?
Yes.
Until the attorney has a
Until the
chance.
attorney
Until after
Whatever it is.
reports
Yeah.
back.
That was a motion by Ms. McGuire, support by
Chairman, Mr. Spencer.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Wishtabarth?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed. Next is the guardian alarm proposal. I gave all the board members a packet. We got that has the information from guardian alarm.
Good evening.
Good evening.
The Guardian alarm,
We need a motion first.
okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'll make a motion that we approve the guardian alarms proposals.
Support.
Propositions. Okay.
All right, discussion.
This came to my attention when one of the alarms, one of the departments at the Township Hall was not working properly. And a representative from Guardian Alarm came out. And it was also found out that MCD Security, who originally installed the system, went out of business and everything was switched over to Guardian. And it seemed like nobody knew at the township when that happened. But there was a fault at one of the intrusion alarms at the department, or at the Township Hall, and, which we can't tolerate. So a representative from Guardian Alarm came out, inspected the system at Township Hall and the library, and found that most of the equipment that's been installed there, they can reuse, but there's upgrades that they have to do. Some of the equipment there is communicating by cellular phone and some by analog. Fire suppression has to be cellular completely, and we're not in code compliant with that because it was an older rule. They're going to upgrade that, add some intrusion alarms. That's what the cost is. I think Township Hall to install and upgrade everything is going to be basically $3,100. The library is going to be $2,935, and both are going to have a monthly cost of $206. But that includes maintenance, monitoring of the equipment right from where they're at to keep everything working. And it's also going to give us Wi-Fi capability. We can run the alarms right from our phones if we need to. Activate them, deactivate them.
Is Guardian Alarm the only ones that came out and looked at it?
Yes. The system was already transferred over to them.
But they're not
MCDs.
monitoring it currently?
No, I don't think they knew they
So
were
they
supposed to.
transferred it over, they weren't monitoring it, they just let it sit there until we called them and said, hey,
Yes.
what are you doing?
Yes.
Awesome, awesome.
And I don't know how long ago that was.
I mean, I'm just
August.
I'm just asking about that, because if they left us in that kind of predicament, should we award them the business?
Well, I don't think it was their fault. I think it was MCD.
But, right, but the company changed hands, and I mean, as a business owner, I mean, if you acquired a company, I would think that you would go through every single one of those customers and make contact with every single one of them. First of all, to introduce yourself, and second of all, to find out if there's any upsells or services that they need. But it doesn't appear that they did that, and it's just, I guess that's par for the course, so. It just irritates me, I'm sorry.
Okay. Do we have any idea why? I mean, it just seemed like because it changed over, we got no notification of the changeover, or?
The change,
It happened.
Jamie said it was last August. That was before I came in, so I couldn't tell you.
So, yes, so I had an incident and I wasn't able to set my alarm.
Right.
And so I kept calling and they kept referring me to the number for MCD and I'm like, we don't use him anymore. Why do you keep giving me this phone number? And so they said, so I started looking into it, realized we stopped paying them last August. We started paying Guardian. I wasn't even aware we switched to Guardian Alarm.
Yeah.
So, had no clue. I don't know how, when, whatever, and I'm not here to point fingers or do whatever. Just all of a sudden I can't set my alarm and that's a problem. So, and it needed to be fixed. Guardian, actually, the guy that came out, was very helpful and actually is going to save us some money in the long run with
Yes.
some of the equipment that they're putting in and installing. And he's, to say the least, he said this isn't the first time that he's come across something that's set up that way, that wasn't being monitored, just serviced.
So it looks like they're trying to, make amends.
Trying to
It
help,
sounds,
yeah.
Jeremy. to
You know
your
what,
point,
if they had called us and said, hey, and come out and looked at it, I would agree with you, Mr. Cummings, but in this
I
specific
called and
case,
they came out-
she had to call them and say, what's going on?
Understood?
Yeah. They were out
understand.
there in 2 days. They came out there 2 days later.
If you're happy with it, then
I'll
I
take
just
it. I
wanted
wanna
to voice
set my
some
alarm.
concerns.
It's definitely not the ideal scene, I'll give you that, right? I mean, it's definitely not, but Jamie, Chief Boland, I mean, are you happy with this? What we've got here as an option?
I am.
Has the attorney looked at
If
it?
it works as they say, yes.
Okay. Is there a contract that goes with this, or are we simply getting, I mean, this really looks more like a series of fees, monthly fees.
Yes.
I don't see anything here that deals with, service level agreement or, periods of time of scheduled maintenance. I mean, did you happen to have those discussions?
We're already using Guardian for our services, like to fix the equipment. We were just not using them for the monitoring services.
I see.
So we already have contracted with them for services.
Oh, and does the monthly fee include maintenance? So if
Yes.
the motion sensor breaks, they
Yes.
send a guy to fix it?
Yes.
Right.
Or a person?
The only thing not included in the price is the permits, if they're required,
Sure,
because they don't know what they would be, so.
right. That's right.
So
Those are
maintenance
with
would go
the
on
county.
as long as we pay the monthly fee?
Yes.
They would always supply the maintenance and...
And they can monitor it right from their facility, is my understanding.
And those permits are with the county, right? Not the township? Those permits you referred
Yes,
to
I would think
are with
so,
the
yeah.
county? Yeah, okay.
Any other questions? Comments?
I guess if we're going to sign a contract, we should have the attorney look at this. She hasn't seen it.
I think we already have a contract with them, they're just adding services, but.
We're
I don't have a
upgrading our
problem with
services,
it.
my understanding.
I'm sorry, Don?
We're upgrading,
Upgrading.
making sure everything works, yes.
But it is another contract,
It is
to Steve's
another
point.
contract.
It's
Right.
signed, it is another contract, two
So
contracts,
can you amend
actually.
the motion?
Yeah. Maybe approval with attorney approval.
I would still support that.
Okay.
Pending attorney approval?
Yeah.
All right. Roll call, please.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
Mr. Wusterbarth?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes?
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed. Next is the RFP evaluation and recommendation for water and wastewater systems operations. Mr. Freeman?
I will make a motion that the board allow the utility subcommittee and the supervisor to work with our engineer and attorney on a contract for operation services for a first year not to exceed $878,282.93 with some options that we'll discuss here shortly, and be a 4-year term contract.
Support, Sutton?
Okay. Mr. Freeman?
Okay, for the last 5 months or so, the Utilities Subcommittee has been looking at the services for the operations and maintenance contractor with the increase in water main that's in the ground, sewer improvements for the various projects that we've completed over the last couple of years. The committee put together a RFP to go out for qualifications, base selection. There was 14 items of qualifications that we included in the RFP. We submitted that or advertised it back in May with a mandatory pre-bid meeting in June with the bid opening on July 11th. Then the proposals have been evaluated since then. The three firms that came to the mandatory pre-bid meeting were F&B Operations, the current contract holder, Infomark, and Operations Services. All the firms are qualified firms. I'll start with Infomark. Infomark is headquartered in Oklahoma and Texas, which was a concern of the subcommittee. F&B Operations and Operations Services are both headquartered in Michigan. Of those two firms, with Operations Services, they took a pretty strong approach in their proposal and took the initiative. They provided a comprehensive operating and maintenance plan moving forward. Specifically highlighted hydrant flushing, spring and fall operation of that, valve operations, getting through the entire system within the township within 2 years of exercising all the valves to find out what valves we have issues with and which ones are operating properly. Also undertaking the sewer videoing and TV and clearing, sewer, TV, videoing, and cleaning, and a comprehensive evaluation of the existing system. So they took a very proactive approach, very comprehensive, very detailed. F&V Operations identified all of those areas, which we know that there are some issues we've had with hydrants, valves, and stuff over the last few years, but didn't go into a lot of detail as far as, other than stating that they would, work on those issues. So all things being equal, the recommendation to the subcommittee and then the subcommittee to the board is to go with operations services. It will be a transition period, but they have successfully went through a similar operation in Grayling. Grayling has a similar setup as both water and lagoon system. They've worked in Linden. All of the 4 references I called all gave them high regards as far as being able to transition smoothly and also bring in staff that want to relocate to the area. So they've got staff already identified that would come in and such. So again, based on all of that criteria, again, the recommendation would be to go with operations services for a new 4-year contract.
Okay, thank you. Comments?
I have a question having to do with the current arrangement we have with F&V for the utility billing clerk. Is something similar being
Yes,
proposed here?
the utility billing clerk would be part of this contract.
Okay.
I noticed that it said in here that F&V has engineering staff within their company to support their operators when needed. Does Operations Services have
Operations Services does not have an engineering arm, but you have Road Professional Services on board, which has engineering backup, that they would also be able to provide that to Operations Services, either directly or through a subcontractor.
What about turnaround time or response time to critical issues?
They've identified already in their proposal a individual that would be available 24/7 for any emergencies, holidays, or whatever. And again, with the fact that their staff, their backup staff would be out of the waters, the Grayling area, but they would actually have 6 individuals on staff here for emergency situations.
And it would be the staff that would be on the 24/7?
Correct.
On call? Okay, got it.
When is the current contract complete?
Not sure if the plan here would be to enter into a contract with them by the 1st of October and then a transition to them by the 1st of January. I'm not sure if the current contract ends in March of 2025 or
late February, I think.
Right. Well, the reason I'm asking is that we're about to have, there's going to be a new board up here, and they're going to have to deal with that. They're going to get stuck right in the middle of a transition that they might not want to do. So that's my only concern here, is that I just don't want to throw them into a situation where they're in the middle of a transition and have to deal with that mess right at the beginning of their term. But if we have to make the decision, and it has to be done by, and we need to start by October 1st, I guess we're going to have to make it, so.
Steve, what was your motion? I'm sorry again.
Jamie, I couldn't hear
For
what
the
you said.
utility subcommittee, the township engineer and the attorney to iron out a contract with operations services not to exceed a first year of $878,282.93, and it will be a 4-year term contract. And we look to offset some things in that number as we have discussions with them, because they provided options in their quote.
What's the transition period if there were to be one?
I'm sorry, what?
What is the duration of this?
The plan would be to have them on board, like I said, as of, hopefully if everything works out contract-wise by October 1st, and then have them basically in place by the 1st of January. Their transition plan was pretty aggressive. It looked like it was doable, with the knowledge that, that myself as the township engineer and Road Professional Services and stuff as far as helping them in the transition.
Is the operation, are they familiar with the BSNA program? Do they utilize that for
Yes.
utility billing? So they'll have somebody, well...
Correct.
Yeah. So will existing employees can transition?
They can transition, and they have a plan in place for them bringing in staff, but if there are existing staff that are willing to transition, they're willing to talk to them.
Any other questions, comments? I have said my only concern is that F&V has a great deal of knowledge of our system, which was mentioned earlier. I know it's been brought to our attention that I think we have had some concerns with staffing with F&V. I know at one point, the previous board, we approved the radio read meters, and I believe when we approved that, we were supposed to get reduced cost from F&V because they wouldn't have people going around from house to house with a reader to do the electric bills, and I don't believe, I could be wrong, but I don't believe we ever got a reduction in the contract for that. But like I say, the main thing I look at is that they do have a lot of knowledge of our system, and but that's not to say that a new company that has an aggressive program, which you showed in the subcommittee, you showed us the book that they prepared. It was quite an impressive book that they put together of their plans and everything. I'm sure they would be able to, in fairly short order, learn our system, especially since we have a lot of new infrastructure that we put in that we actually have accurate diagrams and blueprints of, that we know where the lines are in these new things that we're putting in, so that should be a help. Any other questions, comments?
Yeah, I wanted to address the point about that you raised about this new board and that, and I guess my point here is that it isn't just the new board, it'd also be the interim superintendent at that point. So
it just feels like bad timing.
It is a tough time to do it, I would agree. But I guess my question would be, back to, I guess it has to be you, sorry, Rick, but what would be involved in a transition like this?
Well, it would be
from a township viewpoint.
From the township, obviously all the records are available.
Sure.
We would be bringing them in. They would review all of the existing records and such. Obviously, talk to existing staff, talking to DPW staff. Obviously, then working with the representatives of the subcommittee or whoever the board wants to put together, along with myself, and basically laying out, what the existing system is. Then they're going to do their own investigation as far as going out, looking at the system, looking at different significant components, areas of concern, and then, like I said, implement their plan, which is a pretty aggressive plan as far as going in and physically inspecting, physically operating the equipment. And again, they're very, very familiar with the lagoon system, because like I said, most of the communities they work with are lagoons. And again, most of the communities they work with have a similar water distribution system also. So I mean, it's not really any high-tech stuff that they have to get up to speed on. It's just more or less knowing where everything is at. And again, we do have fairly comprehensive maps already generated through Spicer's SAW program that they completed back in 2016, 2017. And then obviously the plans that we've put together since then as far as for the drinking water revolving funds, we've had to put together comprehensive plans showing the system for that. Same thing with the sewer plant or the sewer projects. So the 25 or so pump stations are clearly identified, so it's a matter, and again, a lot of new equipment's already in there, so it's not getting, going in there and having to fix a lot of things. It's just getting them acclimated to basically the geography.
Thank you for that. Is the contract from F&V, is that also a 4-year contract? Is that what we'd be committing to?
I believe it was a 4-year.
It was approved in October prior to us taking over.
Right, and with the renewal then before, is that what we're looking at this now? Got it, so it's 4 years one way or the other. I got it. All right.
I've been throughout my career, I've been through this process a couple of different times with a couple of different communities without any significant problems as far as transitioning to a new company. When I was with Rowe, Grayling went through this same situation. They lost some operators and such, and Operation Systems came in and has done a good job. So.
I guess my last question, it might go to Steve. Was there a particular problem we were trying to solve by doing this RFP now, or just because of contract renewal?
Well, the renewal was up, and we needed to do an RFP.
Okay.
And only in my view, I'm surprised that Blair had said that he hasn't heard of any issues, because there has been issues, especially with people and manning, and that's my big focus, is we necessarily, a lot of times, don't have the proper people in place that we're paying for. And then the other thing is just preventative maintenance. I just don't see any plans that I would expect for these type of systems that are done on a daily basis. It just seems to do as needed issues. And there's some maintenance it's doing, but I want to see a little bit better for the township. And nothing against F&V. We did an RFP, we compared the RFPs, we went through them, and I was quite impressed with operations and services plans. They're very detailed.
Fair enough, and thank you. So I guess I'm sorry, I do have one more question, but it would then turn back to you, Rick. So in terms of maintenance, did we have a maintenance budget? Of course, we've been talking about bonds and repairing lift stations for years, right? I mean, this isn't new. What's going to be different for Operation Systems that, it was or wasn't available to F&V all these years?
And I can't speak to, what in the past, the budgets have been put together for maintenance and that, but we have come across several instances where, pump stations, I use pump station 8 as an example. That was deteriorating pretty fast and didn't show up on any radar screen that needed attention until we already had completed the 2021 CWRS SRF, and it wasn't included as part of that. It was felt that the condition was adequate to get us to the next project, and obviously that didn't happen. So again, more detailed inspection, more, just frequency of evaluating these, and then the system that they have in place, the computer system, the management system is industry-wide, but they plug that into all of their all their inspections get plugged into that, and those are reports are generated out of that for us here at the township, who look at on an annual basis for budgeting process and such as far as that goes, and then also identifying more emergency situations a little sooner. And again, we had a lot of valves that we couldn't exercise as far as shutting down mains to make connections and stuff. And again, they've put together a pretty aggressive system that they're going to get through all valves within the township in 2 years, exercising and making sure that they operate properly.
And we're not going to have any bad investment in these upgraded, right, exactly the meters that we're talking about. Good, okay, thank you. All right, thank you, Bill.
Any other questions, comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer?
No.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
Mr. Worcestebarth?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
I'm going to go with yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed. Next up is the executive search. I believe Mr. Gazer had sent an email out to all the board members with a recommendation after the primary election. He suggested two options to take. One was to terminate the current executive recruitment agreement with DHS, and the other was to postpone the executive recruitment and consider amending the scope of work of DHS. I think that makes sense to do, to turn this over to the new board to make a decision of what they want to do with the superintendent. And so I wanted to add that to the agenda this evening so the board could make a decision on what direction you want to go with this.
I'd make a motion to terminate and let the new board deal with it.
Support.
That way, if they don't want to have the same company, they can pick somebody else. But if they do, then it'll already be set for them.
Doesn't termination prevent that from being set for them?
No, because it would already be ready. They've already discussed it with that company, and they can just say, oh, sure, here you go, instead of rewriting everything.
So a motion by Mr. Spencer, support by Mr. Westerbarth. Comments?
I'd rather see us postpone. I think we're invested already, and I think it's important to keep that ball rolling.
Yeah, and I think the difference is if what they explained here, and I think all the board members should have a copy of this, email it to everybody, to terminate the current agreement, there would be no cost, other than we've paid our initial payment, and that covers the work that they've done so far, and they would be doing nothing else going forward. Then it would be up to the new board's decision if they wanted to come back to them or if they wanted to go with somebody different. But I think to Ms. McGuire's point, we have invested in this company. They have done things for us. They did locate this interim superintendent, which I will go back and try and, persuade to reconsider the position. So they have done quite a few things. The difference is by postponing, there would be a new timeline of what they would do. So there would be some additional cost with doing the postponement. But I think it probably would be worth it because they would conduct another meeting like we had with Nate at Warrior Pavilion, and where he went over all the intricacies of what's involved with this and got our opinions on things, and then of course he would be doing that with the new board. So, however, the motion was to terminate the agreement. So can I get a roll call, please?
Ms. McGuire?
No.
Mr. Westerbarth?
Yes.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton? No. Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
No.
Mr. Palmer?
No.
Motion.
I would make another motion to postpone until the first meeting in December.
Support.
It's fine. It's fine, you got there. And to Mr. Paul, I wanted to...
First meeting in December.
The two of you. Go ahead, Bill, I'm sorry.
You're making a motion to take the second option of postponing.
Yes.
Okay.
So we needed to do something, and the other motion failed, so it sounds like the board wants to postpone it, so...
I thought you were saying postpone till the next meeting.
No, till the first meeting in December. That way that the new board can take over and run with it, and then they get their pick.
Is
that a bad idea?
I don't think we need to put a date on when the postponement
No,
is.
it's to postpone the executive recruitment.
And the new board can take it up.
Don't put a date.
I don't want to shove anything down.
So what's the motion now?
I haven't changed it yet.
Option 2.
That's what
Option 2, the postponement.
I thought that's what you were doing, just postponing it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was going to bring a callback date. That way it has to come back on the agenda for the new board at their first meeting so that you guys can discuss it and make a decision moving forward. And if you want to continue to postpone it at that time, it'll be on you guys. And if you don't, you can take action however you want. But I didn't want to, we don't need it to keep coming back to us if we're not going to make that decision.
Right. Unlike maybe other situations,
I think
the next board would know to pull it back. It wouldn't be like like indefinitely and all of that. But because of the 2750 that's quoted in this letter, it's actually not a bad little bump for moving what they have learned about us.
Right.
As an exec search.
We're gonna, so we're just postponing the executive recruitment and amending the scope of work with them. So we're still gonna work with them to amend what we were working with them with.
Yeah.
Right, and you can do that,
Yeah.
but there won't be any, it won't be brought back to the board unless you want me to just postpone it indefinitely. So if you really, really want to bring it back up here, you can.
We're not postponing like we postpone on things.
An item.
We're choosing option 2.
We're just choosing option 2.
Which is to postpone the executive recruitment and consider amending the scope of work with DHS. That's option 2.
Okay.
That's the way it's
I
written.
understand.
Yeah,
You want to read?
No,
wanna
here,
read
I'll
that?
just read it out loud then. How about
Yep.
that?
Number 2.
Okay, so I would change my motion to postpone the executive recruitment and consider amending the scope of work with DHS.
Jamie?
Do you still support that, Ms. McGuire?
Oh, I'm still supporting.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Teaser?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Wurstbard?
Yes.
Miss McGuire?
Yes?
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes. Motion passed. Just to be clear on that, the only difference is whether we hold them in place for the new board to reapproach and take advantage of what they've already learned.
Yeah, that's fine. I figured it would be doing the same thing, it would just put it on hold, but then Ms. McGuire had a good point, well, we still need to talk to him about moving forward and all that stuff, so yeah. That's cool.
All right, next up was the auditor.
Engagement letter for
Engagement
services like I mentioned earlier, our audit contract with Gaybridge is over, and we would have to normally go out for RFP, but to put the RFP together and get it out and those type of things, do we want to consider going with a new company or staying with Gaybridge, since it is going to be pretty much a new board coming in, and a lot of the stuff that's been done, obviously the work has been completed by this board, and so I thought it would be beneficial for us to extend with Gaybridge for 1 year and then go out for RFP after everybody else kind of gets settled into their roles, that type of thing, and then take a look at the different options and stuff. So I reached out to Ian today and got a copy of the standard engagement letter that we've been signing, and I'm just asking for the permission of the board to go ahead and have, I believe it would be the supervisor sign it after the attorney looks at it.
I would move to approve the 1-year extension with attorney approval.
Support.
A motion by Mr. Spencer, support by Mr. Cummings. Questions?
It would be at the same price too. They're not going to raise the price or do anything for the extended year.
Okay. I think it makes sense because typically our audit starts right after the first of the year. And so, like Ms. McGuire indicated, that's the new board just getting started. So to try and bring in a brand new auditor might be a little testy. So I think to extend that for a year makes a lot of sense. Any other questions, comments? When you're ready, roll call, please.
Mr. Teaser?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Wurstbard?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes?
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed. That brings us to the end of our township business. Next is public comment. If you want to make a public comment, you have 4 minutes. Please state your name and come up to the podium, please.
My name is Regina Fortner, and I have 2 questions. One of them was on the contract for the new contract on the water main, on that stuff. They were stating that the contract ends, from what I understood, in March. So if the new company was to take over in January, are we having to pay till March for the other company? Or did I misunderstand what was said? I thought I understood.
No, you heard that correct, but we want, the committee wanted a time so both companies would be present so we could learn, they could learn. So that's part of the equation and part of the decision.
Okay, so besides the October to December, getting to know each other, then there would be an additional 3 months of them working together.
The intent would have them start officially at the first of the year.
Okay. So the answer basically would be that we are going to be paying for 2 different companies for a while.
For a few months.
Okay. My nest question, and this one is going to seem really stupid, and I understand, but on the police officers ordering all the weapons, yeah, I get it, we need them, but does each officer have to have their own individual rifle as well as the other pieces? Or since they're working different shifts, is that something that is able to be used as joint ownership, I would call it, whatever?
I think the answer is if there was a situation where they were using rifles, it would be all hands on deck.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I have one more comment that I would like to clarify. Our existing contract ends April of 2026, not April of 2025.
Any other comments? Yes.
I didn't know that.
Hi, Brenda Godfrey of Oscoda. When I Googled police officer, this is what it said. A police officer is a person whose job is to enforce laws, investigate crimes, and make arrests. Now I see Mr. Alexander has been promoted to administrative sergeant. This is the same officer myself and others had issues with, basically not doing his job, the job he was hired to do. I came before this board and even put it in my retirement letter, and as you all know, I was relieved of my duties that day. Mr. Kubik as well spoke of issues, and we all know how that ended. And now he gets promoted for doing everything except police work. Not one other officer applied. Makes me question the whole job title, almost like it was created specifically for one person. All new duty and off-duty firearms, top-of-the-line tasers, $20,000 for a firearm trailer, grant writing, all administrative duties. Plus, I'm sure a lot more odd stuff. And let's not forget they can take home patrol cars. Worst move ever. You do realize that these cars, all of them, will rack up the miles at the same time. So come time to replace the normal 1 or 2 has now turned into replacing all of them. The miles are going to accumulate fast, especially if you're driving to, let's say, Lincoln or Hubbard Lake. This is going to cost Oscoda greatly. Chief Bolin has stated that he has gone above and beyond, so much so that you had to step on your fellow officers. Growing up, we had a different name for it, though. With the chief and 3 or 4 sergeants, not one of them has gone above and beyond. That's not saying a lot for your sergeants now, is it? Jamie, I too would like to know what duties the chief has, especially with this new position. I see we not only still have 2 officers, but also the chief at these meetings, and I'm guessing 2 other officers either patrolling or watching the meetings. How much is this costing us? How much are we paying out in overtime for the police department? We have had a lack of leadership, professionalism, accountability, and structure with this board and superintendent, and tonight we can actually say goodbye to part of it. Oscoda will be better with the new board and most definitely a new superintendent. Part of me has to wonder if her people would have won, would she have withdrawn her resignation? And lastly, I would like to thank Sergeant McNichol for his years of service. Words cannot express what an impact your leadership has left on this community. Thank you, Sergeant McNichol, for your dedicated service, bravery, courage, and commitment to Oscoda Township and Asabo. It was a pleasure working with you, and I wish you much success in your future. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I just thought I'd come up real quick and say that.
Could you state your name, please, for the record?
I'm sorry?
Could you state your name for the record, please?
Deborah. I was very pleased with the results. Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I was very pleased with the results of the election, and the last 4 years have been a very long learning experience, and I hope that it has been a learning experience for you guys too. And I hope the next board will listen to the people, will answer questions that the people ask, won't create lists, won't drive by people's houses, won't call people nasty names on Facebook. And if they do, the rest of the board will censor them or censure them. And there's just been so many things that have been said and done in the last couple years. And all we ever wanted was to be listened to and heard and treated with respect.
Thank you. Anyone else? Any other public comments?
I'm not touching this thing. Haley, Oscoda. December 14th, 2020, your second meeting, the new board. And I want to leave Sutton and Spencer out of this. But the rest of you, concerning the OMA law, is it ever legal to go into closed session to consider the sale of township-owned property? Now, I've asked this question many times of key individuals here. We're going to leave Sutton and Spencer out of this because I didn't expect them to know that. But the rest of you, just because a lawyer writes what I would term a cover letter for you to go into closed session, you 5 should have known that that is not legal in the OMA law. It's very clear when you read it. I've known of the OMA law since 1976, I believe, in high school out here with Larry Coleman. It's very clear when you read it, and then you look at Attorney General's opinion, 5284, which clearly denotes this. So this has been a problem all along, and then the property, I file a FOIA, and up comes a letter of intent from Renovar for Furtaw Field. Furtaw was fully protected in the DNR trust fund at that time under the stewardship clause. And I came before this board at that time and said so. But nothing was done about it. It's like you didn't even want to read. So a lawyer can, a lawyer is like, to me, is an in-between. You've got your law, then you've got your lawyers in between. And they do make money trying to pursue that, like you can get around the law. You can't get around the OMA law. It's clear, it's distinct. They tell you the only reasons you can go into closed sessions are clearly denoted in the OMA law. And I don't want a bad handoff to the next board, because I'm tired of dealing with this for a number of years now. And then, to compound it even further, FRTA's in the 5-year plan. I helped get it in there. Mr. Stalker asked contractors to come in and give our opinion, which we did individually. So we helped to get it in there to be developed. It had a high priority to get developed, even more so than Van Etten, which I'm glad we got some things done on Van Etten, fine. But then you turn right around and after Renovar dropped out, what did you do? FRTA was in the 5-year plan by a resolution vote. And that resolution vote was through a process through the DNR for our 5-year recreation plan. So the people spoke on it, and they wanted it in there. They put it in there at a high priority. Then you turn around and you make a motion vote, a mere motion vote that does not match the resolution vote. And that's how you made it disposable. And then Josh did step up and he wanted to try to protect it, and he come forward with the resolution. FRTA is still not protected. It's not been made whole. You need to revisit what you have done here and fix it. And I think you know, Mr. Wischerbarth, it's illegal to go into closed door session to consider selling property, correct? Right, there we go. And there is part of the whole problem.
I'm still waiting for your evidence.
Evidence of what?
You're welcome to go to a court of law.
I don't have to go to a court. I'm coming right here as a charter township.
Thank you.
Is my time up?
Your time's up.
I
You
didn't
can
see the
see on
time.
the screen.
Hey, we can discuss this
And I
anytime
disagree
you
with
want.
all your
Anytime you want.
Your time is up. Thank you, Mr. Haley. Thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else? Any other comments?
How are you? My name is Valerie Etter, and I am married to the man that has filed suit against you. But what you don't know about me is my family has lived and been residents of Oscoda Township for over 100 years. You see, my grandmother, Grace Hopcroft, owned the Hilltop Bar. I've been going into that bar since before I could walk. Her picture still welcomes you as you walk into the bar, with Robert Stack, who was a movie star at the time, came and made a movie at Ortsmith Air Force Base and would go into my grandma's bar and have cocktails afterwards. My father, Bill Hopcroft, owned a car lot up here, Northern Auto Sales. It stood where the now vacant family video is. And my mother, Marcy Hopcroft, was county commissioner up here for 8 years. And the 911 central dispatch that Miss Klein was so impressed with, she can thank my mother for that, because she was the catalyst behind 911 central dispatch during her tenure as county commissioner. So I just thought I'd introduce myself. I'm ashamed of my hometown for the way they discriminated against us. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. And I'm looking forward to seeing you in court.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
My name is Mariette Tooten, and I live here in Oscoda. I debated whether I should even discuss this or not, but I'm going to anyway. Regarding the remarks that Jeremy made at the end of the last board meeting, calling prospective employers and trying to get people's futures destroyed, that's what it's come to? I was as shocked as anyone. And then I found out he was talking about me. What? Okay. So here's what actually happened. I spoke to 3 people between 2 p.m. and 2:15 p.m. on the Monday of the last board meeting. I was clearing up some confusions I had about Develop by Osco and Target Alpena. I had also heard a rumor from more than one person, and I couldn't at this point tell you who, but definitely more than one person, that Tammy had gotten a new job up at Target Alpena. And so at the end of the conversations, I said, hey, I heard a rumor that Tammy's coming to work for Target Alpena. Is that true? Now, I never actually got an answer to that question that day. But 4 hours later, I was destroying people's futures? Really? Okay, so the next day I actually heard from Mike Mailer, who she's going to work for, and he said, oh yeah, Tammy's coming to work for us. She's going to be working in economic development activities up here, and we're really excited to have her. I said, thanks, Mike. Does that sound like destroying people's futures to you? Seriously? No. But it was certainly enough to tank my campaign. When you look at the statistics from the early voting and the absentee ballots, at the end of that, I was in 4th place. And I lost something like 42 votes on election day, 1 week after your comment. You know? I mean, what do you do to stand up to something like that? How do you even say, what the hell? I mean, come on. So I wanted to caution my fellow townsfolk and y'all about spreading rumors. You know, could you please deal in facts? Could you please deal not in innuendo and somebody's fear-ridden paranoia and actually find out what happened? Do you know that no one on the board reached out to me to find out what was said? Nope, not a thing. But it was okay to spread that rumor around, boy, yeah. Okay, so check rumors out. If you're not willing to do it, and the hell with your comment about social media, go over to Truly Oscoda and ask the question. There are people over there who will help you find out the truth. And so I'm asking if we could, I had some things I wanted to say to Tammy, but she's not here, never mind. So my only caution is, don't believe everything you hear, not even from me. Fact check me, go ahead, it's fine. Get supporting evidence or documentation. Talk to others with facts, not rumor. If you don't feel like you could dig into something, there are plenty of folks here that are willing to do the work and investigate and find out for you. Use us. Live in truth.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, seeing no other hands, board comment. Mr. Cummings.
Sure. Let me start with my deepest regrets to Mr. Eric McNichol as our detective sergeant who resigned. I'm sincerely going to, I just don't like seeing people have to leave or feel that they have to leave. I just feel that that's a bad indicator. I would really like to see that turn around for this township. I was a bit taken aback by the comment from the gentleman, the partner principal of F&V, saying that the contract that we have with them doesn't expire on the date quoted by the discussion. So I'd really like to find out what the heck that's about, because I really don't want to feel as though we've been misled on that and have to rescind a decision. But in any case, there that is. That's it, and thank you very much.
Mr. Spencer?
Well, first of all, Ms. Tuden, I didn't name you, and I wasn't talking about specifically you. And if you want to talk about all the facts, you called twice. First of all, to talk about what you were asking about with Target up there, to ask about what's going on, and that was great. But there was no reason for you to ask anything about whether or not Tammy worked there, and then call back and leave a message and ask again. That's what I was talking about specifically. And with the way that you and Ms. Klein had interacted, it was ugly on both sides. I'm not going to sit here and point fingers at either one of you because both of you were wrong, in my opinion, in the way that you dealt with each other. And I did not single you out because it wasn't just you. Mr. Woosterbarth had to have a meeting with his CEO because people were calling his company complaining about him. You know, and it's been going on, and with other ancillary board members where they've had their livelihood has been attacked by factions in this township. And I wanted to stop, and that's all. And I don't think that you did it maliciously. I was merely mentioning that it happened. Now, for you to say that I tanked your campaign, I think is a little bit egregious, because like I said, I did not mention your name because I wasn't trying to point fingers. I was making a general comment, and there we have it. And I do not dislike you. I think that you would have been an excellent trustee, and I'm sorry that you didn't make it, and neither did I. So now maybe we can meet up sometime and complain about it. There we have it. And I'm excited for the new board as well.
Thank you. Mr. Sutton.
I don't have any comment.
Mr. Wishbarth.
All I can say is F&V has been properly noticed through our attorney with the clause in the contract. I'll be glad to make sure that gets sent out to everybody on the board.
All right, thank you. Mr. Taser? Nope. Ms. McGuire?
No.
No. Well, I would like to congratulate all the winners in the primary. We still have an election in November. Possibility that there could be some changes, but I guess we'll wait until November to find out about that. I also want to thank the residents of Oscoda Township for passing the police millage. I hope they will consider and pass the fire millage when that's on the agenda in November. I would like to point out that there was a state police investigation of the alleged closed session, and it was found by the state police that there was no violation of the Open Meetings Act. The board has instructed me to re-engage with the interim superintendent, and I just wondered if he was watching this meeting tonight, because something tells me that with the comments and things that have been made, I have a hunch he's still not going to be interested, but I will follow through and talk to him. So with that, I will call this meeting adjourned.